what do you think is the cause of your suffering that you had for years?
Yeah, I think there's several things there, but I think the biggest thing that I've noticed is there was really two layers for me. One was the majority of it, I think, was just excess carbohydrate intake was causing just damage inside my body, and my body was just trying to heal, but you pump it full of so much stuff, it can only keep up with so much. And I mean, our bodies are miraculous. They can do such incredible things if you give them the space to do it. And so I just was fueling it with stuff that was too damaging. And then, of course, then with the processed foods came chemicals and things that made it even worse. There was that. And then for me personally, I don't know if it's oxalates or if it's fiber or if it's a combination of things. There is something about too much plant intake that weighs my body down and causes my brain to be foggy, and I struggle. And I put those two things together, and it just ruined my ability to be me.
Well, we're here today with Chris and Ash. Bad Ash and Chris Cook in Nashville. And really a pleasure to have both of you here today. How you doing?
I'm doing really great. Thank you so much, Dr. Kiltz, for having us.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here, man. Thank you.
Well, I'm in the keto carnivore world, so we're kind of talking about food, and Chris is a master at sharing that, and Ash is the master at sharing the stories through music and art and energy in order to help us all live a better life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Tell us a little bit about yourself. So let's start with Ash.
Yeah. Well, my name is Ash Taylor. Clearly, I'm Chris Cooking Nashville's wife. But, you know, I'm a singer-songwriter. Lived here in Nashville for 8 years. I do music full-time. Get to travel and tour the country and play shows and write songs and record music. And I just love country music. I love telling stories. I love connecting with people. So I love what I do. But also, oddly enough, because of being married to Chris Cooking Nashville, I ended up getting introduced to keto. And it changed my life. I mean, it really, really did. And I think, you know, I'm not a health food influencer or anything like that. I'm just a real person.
Yeah.
I so happen to write songs, but I am very evangelical about telling other musicians and just other real people about what the keto and carnivore diet, you know, what this has done for me. I think a lot of people don't think about things like, you know, my body is not as inflamed, so I can play guitar faster. My mind is sharper. I can write a better song. I can sing better. I can, you know, all these things where it's just keto has literally changed my life. So I've lost about 100 pounds, and it's just fixed so many different things: anxiety, depression, all gone. So, but yeah. So when I'm not touring and whatnot, I get to taste everything this guy makes. It's not a bad gig. I enjoy it, and kind of just get to be his wife and partner in crime, and you know, just live life and eat meat, basically.
Yeah, and sing songs and write
all
songs
the
and
things.
all that.
Yeah.
All that. And let's see. So where do you get who makes the best food?
Him.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
That's what they say.
I have to be honest. I married up is what I like to say. I don't cook at all. I don't even boil water. So, but I married him, so I don't have to. But I love to do the dishes. So he'll cook dinner, and then I go in. I'll be like, "Hey, you go sit down," and then I go in our kitchen and I clean it up. That's my job. That's my contribution.
You don't just go in the kitchen. You kick me out of the
do.
kitchen intentionally and tell me, get out of my kitchen so I can clean.
Yeah. Well, I think that's fair, though, because I don't cook. I'm like, you cooked, I'll clean. Keep it fair.
That's
Keep
right.
it fair.
You provide the right environment
That's
for it
right.
to all happen.
Yes.
So, well, let's talk about cooking, but I also want to talk about where you're all from and how you got together and how important this is in your lives.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, yeah, I mean, if anybody knows the name Chris Cook in Nashville, if they're in the keto and carnivore world, they know that I do the whole recipe thing. And that really started kind of by accident, truthfully, because so Ash and I met. She was working at a guitar center, and I'm a musician. Of course, I was playing lead guitar for another artist in town named Dallas Remington. And she was like, "You've got to meet my friend Ash." And so we went to this guitar center. I was helping Dallas put together a pedal board for her guitar touring rig. And she introduced me to Ash. Ash had no idea I was coming in, by the way, and had no interest in dating anybody at the time either. And so I was totally falling in love, and she was not going to even give me the time of day. And so through a long series of wooing events and everything, we ended up we finally ended up dating, and long story short, I started cooking for her pretty soon in, because I've cooked my entire life, and I love just the culture of food and what it does for us as human beings. And so that was the way to her heart when she had no interest in dating me. And so over a period of time, we were going to get married, and in 2020, the music industry suffered really bad, big time. So we both lost our jobs. We lost the house we were renting. We lost a car. We lost 2 different businesses we had started. So we basically ended up with nothing.
Wow.
And we said, we have nothing and everything is going on credit cards, so we may as well try to take care of our health because we need to, and it's the only thing we've got left to try to salvage. So that's when we discovered the whole keto and carnivore route, and we went keto first. And then I tried carnivore because I wanted to try to look good for our wedding pictures. And so I tried to super boost what I was getting from keto. And I had this mental brain awakening experience about 2 weeks into carnivore. And it was really a magical thing. And so that was great. We got married. All was good. I didn't deal with a carbohydrate addiction, and I went back off the rails because I stopped caring about it and taking care of myself, and the self-control was out the window. And so after about a year of being off the rails, we went back to, I was like, I've got to do something because this is terrible. And so I told her, I said, all right, we've got to go back to doing, I'm going to go back to keto with you, carnivore for me. We know that's what works. And so I went back to doing the 3 portions of meat, 2 for me, 1 for you, and then a low carb veg for you kind of thing. And that's what had worked. And that's what we went back to. And this time around, I said, well, I've got to be able to keep myself accountable here. I've got to share what I'm doing with other people. So it's not just me trying to self-discipline myself into this, but I want some accountability, and I want a record that I can look back at and see what changes. And so I started doing the Chris Cooking Nashville YouTube channel, which at first I was just going to share just the foods that I was making, simple recipe things, and I was going to do health vlogs, and that's what I started out with. And then suddenly I sort of realized one of the things I struggled with the first time was I gave up being creative in the kitchen, because we're creative types. We're musicians. I love to cook. Like we just like to create. And I'd given all that up to just eat carnivore. And it was not that I needed to do it regularly, but on the rare occasion when my creative side wanted to kick in, what do I get to do and how do I feed people creatively? And so I started doing these recipes, and I just started posting some stuff online, and next thing you know, here we are getting views, and Anita, Ketogenic Woman, had shared a recipe of mine, and people started watching, and it just kind of took off from there. And then as the channel really started to grow, then I grabbed Ash and I roped her in. And she was already taste testing everything that I was doing, which she actually makes a great taste tester for someone cooking carnivore, because she loves eating eggs if they're just eggs. She hates things that taste like eggs when they're not supposed to be eggs. So if it's supposed to taste like bread and it tastes like scrambled eggs, she won't eat it. And she's really picky about that.
Like I spit it out.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
She's spit out more than one thing that I've made in the past. Because
Check, that one's out.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right. That's
That ain't
right.
gonna fly.
And so it was this like really high bar to try to reach with my stuff. And so it was this kind of newfound passion. I call myself the gateway drug to carnivore, because I think a lot of people are so just confused about how could I ever eat just all animal products and like be happy with that, because I've never done this in my life. And so I started doing these recipes, and I found not only for me was it fun, and it was a passion to like introduce people who would never consider this before to the idea of carnivore. And then it became a challenge of, well, how close can I actually make this taste to the real thing? And so it turned into this sort of gateway drug thing where I'm like, if I can get it past my wife, I think most people would probably be able to really enjoy this. And it turned into a really big passion to help people. And, and then especially because we're musicians and we tour and, we do all this kind of stuff, like we meet people all over the world. And it's really cool to sit, not just because you're an online influencer, but to sit face to face with somebody and show them your before picture. Like, I used to be 130 pounds heavier than I am now.
Wow.
And I'm still working to lose the last of my weight, but I'm getting better all the time. And there's so many things beneath the surface that are also going on that people don't even see that are so much better in my life. The anxiety, the depression, the brain fog, the pain, like things no one else would ever see, and they're all gone. And so it's really cool to sit on a tour bus or in a green room with band members of the person you're opening for, and you talk with them about proper human diet, and you talk with them about why I'm a carnivore, and look at my before picture, and you can be just face to face with people and be like, the reason I'm here is because of the amazing things we do. And so we get to not only cook online, but also travel around the country and meet people face to face, and just try to, be like boots on the ground, trying to change people's lives with music and food and just knowledge of all this stuff.
Our culture is food.
Yes.
And that's who and what we are. Wherever you're from in this world, it's still the family, the gatherings, and all of that. And certainly music and entertainment's been a large part of that.
Yeah.
How have you been able to sort of mesh those things together and provide that entertainment, but still helping people eat in a way that's healthier? And you both have seen the differences. Weight is one, although I'm assuming you both were feeling the benefits of keto and carnivore without any weight loss.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I will let you take the
Yeah,
start of this one.
I just wanted to share really quick, talking about the benefits really quick of keto and carnivore before the weight loss. To be honest, just in case someone's listening and they're like, I don't know about this whole keto carnivore thing. Like, what is that? That was my first reaction. And so growing up in California, clearly, I thought, well, vegan is healthy. I mean, if you want to be healthy, you're a vegan. You eat lots of plants. And this is what I grew up, just like many other people, hearing my whole life. So the idea that my husband comes to me and he's like, we're going to eat just meat. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? That's crazy. Can you do that? Will you live? So, at first I was kind of skeptical, just because it was opposite of what I was raised to believe. And he went carnivore for 2 weeks. And I was like, yeah, try it. I'll encourage you, go for it. He went carnivore for 2 weeks and he started to wake up. And when I say this man became a different person, I cannot exaggerate that enough. Like, he got up and he started smiling for the first time. I had been with this man for years. I have never seen him smile. Wow. He started before, and I'm sure you wouldn't mind me sharing this, we talk about this. There was a while when we were dating, when I first met Chris, I believe he didn't step on a scale. I believe he was over 400 pounds at one point, like when I first met him. And I could not get him up off the couch just to go on a walk or go travel with me to go do this or go do that. Yeah. And so watching him go carnivore and 2 weeks in, start to wake up and smile and start to be like, hey, do you want to go take the dog on a walk? And watching him just walk around and seeing him just happy and seeing the anxiety and the depression lift, I became a believer of the carnivore diet, and I became real evangelical really quick, though, because I'm like, this is life-changing. And we have a world of people out here, just like myself, who are kind of like, I don't know about this, guys, what's the deal? It's like, look at the results. You cannot argue with that. So I think the carnivore diet is one of the greatest things that has ever happened to us, hands down. It's just the biggest blessing. But yeah, I'll let you go. But I just think that's so important, though, to share, because man, was it a difference. I mean, just life changing.
And there were so many benefits that started. I mean, almost immediately from us just even doing keto. I personally got benefits with carnivore I didn't get with keto, but keto even just itself already brought me so many benefits. Before the weight really started coming off, it was getting up and my back doesn't hurt. Yeah. It was getting up and so I dislocated my right knee when I was in high school. I have a metal rod in my left ankle from a broken ankle there when I was getting close to my heaviest, and they put a metal rod in there because I was so heavy. They needed to reinforce that bone that I broke. I had some low back pain from just, I think, some injuries when I was, in college kind of thing. And these were things that just, they would hurt on a regular basis. If the weather changed, they would be sore, these kinds of things. All of that started improving within a week or two of starting keto, and inflammation started, the water weight, just my body holding on to so much extra liquid and just the inflammation and like my joints, my fingers. I'm a guitar player, and it was weird. My fingers weren't hurting. I'm sure over time they would have started to, but I think just I'm young enough that it still hadn't set into being true pain. But what was so crazy is I started keto, and within probably a month, I would say, I was playing guitar, and I recognized I was playing faster, I was playing smoother, and the joints in my fingers didn't feel stiff. And it was almost like my fingers and my joints were so swollen that even though they would move without pain, they wouldn't move without resistance. And that all went away. And so there were like so many different little things. And it's hard to even remember how many of them happened. But I just remember there would be things I would wake up and suddenly something would be different. And I would be like, I didn't even know that that was an issue, but now it's better. And I realized, well, apparently it is. And so when I went carnivore and my brain totally changed, I was like, what the heck is this? Like, I didn't expect that to happen. I was just trying to lose more weight. I didn't know. And I was like, I remember looking at Ash one day and I said, is this what people are supposed to feel like? Because I've never felt this way. I didn't know you could feel this way. The last time I remember not feeling like there was weight on my brain, weight on my emotional existence, just the responsibility of carrying that load constantly in my head. I was probably 9 or 10 years old. And it's like, is this how people are supposed to feel? Is this how I'm supposed to think? Because I didn't know that's a thing. It was amazing to me. And so I got very evangelical, as you said, about it. And, and so then when we started the YouTube channel, at first I really didn't know that this was going to be what it is. I mean, this is what I do full time now, along with being, Ash's lead guitar player and band leader and manager and all that. And so we just kind of have a dual family business thing, but I never knew that's what I was doing. I started the channel because I said, one, I need the accountability. Two, if I can inspire even one person that they should give this a try and their life gets better, then it was worth all of the effort. And I had no idea that it would be what it is now. And I mean, we're sitting here, I do it full time. It's like 127,000 subscribers, like, things that I never dreamed that I would be doing. But we've gotten so passionate about doing it because we've seen the people's lives that it's changed. And, when you get an email or a message on social media or something from someone who says, I have an autistic child who throws food across the room when it's not the right texture, and I'm trying to get them to eat a lower carb diet for their health, for their brain, for all these things. And every time I try, they hate all the recipes. I made your pizza recipe, and they ate it and they didn't question it. And for the first time, I feel like as a mom, I'm doing something great for my child. Wow. That means a lot. When someone says, I'm battling cancer and I'm struggling to stick to a carnivore diet, but that's what I think is best for me going through chemo and all these things, and I keep falling off the wagon, or I did until you created a carnivore mashed potato recipe because potatoes are my weakness. Now I make that, and now I'm beating my cancer. Like, when I start getting messages like that, suddenly I realized this isn't about me anymore. This is about millions, possibly billions of people who need help. And if we can figure out the way to deliver the information so that they really sit up and take notice, there's a lot of people to be saved, and there's a lot of opportunity to do things that has nothing to do with us. And so we kind of took the musician focus, right? It's all about the marketing and the packaging and how do you deliver this so that people, they see it, because we're living in a world of a sea of information that's trying to get your attention all the time, and you have to compete with that. So we started introducing this kind of rock and roll vibe, which is very much my personality, because I grew up, before I was playing country with her, I grew up in the hard rock side of things and classic rock and that kind of thing. So and she's a Bakersfield girl, so even Bakersfield country has that rock element to it, and the Buck Owens and the Merle Haggards and the guys that were the Outlaws and the kind of rock and roll attitude. And so we started incorporating this rock and roll musician thing, and it started reaching people and just standing out to people. And so I leaned in heavily to the, let's be a YouTuber about this. Like, don't just do the recipes. Don't just tell people about a carnivore diet or a keto diet or whatever. Put that information in a package that looks rock and roll, that looks like YouTube, that is, it's playing with the algorithm. It's playing the game, that all the big marketing companies at big food corporations are playing, but trying to beat them at their own game. And like, okay, you want to make potato chips or, Kool-Aid or, any of these other kinds of things that are filled with dyes and junk and all this stuff that's super addictive and just is horrible for people's health. You want to make it look cool. You advertise it. You make it lots of fun music or characters, or use celebrities or any of this kind of stuff. Guess what? We can play that game too, and then I can put healthy ingredients into it. And so I can compete as best I can with the budget I have to try to market to people. Carnivore can be cool. You can be a rock star and also take care of your health at the same time. And so we kind of combined these two worlds and just accidentally ended up with what we do now.
Yeah, I think that's, you were talking about the entertainment aspect.
Yes.
So I did not truthfully want to be involved in the channel when Chris started it, because I'm like, well, I don't cook, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not whatever, but I just kind of like to eat my meat and do my thing. And that's when Chris pulled me in, and he was like, I need your help. He's like, because we could take this to a broader audience if we made it entertaining. And me being an artist, it's like, well, I understand social media, I get marketing, this is things I spend hours a day studying and researching. And so that's I think what we're really passionate about. I think there's a lot of people that have been on this for a while and they're good with meat, salt, water, and that's awesome, like good. But we have billions of people that need our help over here. And so if I can tell them, hey, come on in, the water's just fine, and can we make it fun and entertaining and grab their attention? But that's kind of like what we're doing right now. Like Chris is actually in a competition for the favorite chef, which is an online competition where if you win, it's you can tell the prize is better than I can probably.
Yeah, so there's like a monetary prize. I really don't care about that. What is really the thing that I'm chasing with the hope that maybe we might win this, you get a feature in Taste of Home magazine, and you get to cook with Carla Hall, and you get to interact with all of these Food Network chefs that are all involved in this competition. And the thing that I've been telling people on social media is like, go vote for me, because can you imagine the broad appeal if you could start getting keto and carnivore recipes, cooking a proper human diet like a chef and having fun with it, but starting to get that on that Taste of Home magazine, Food Network level of media. And it doesn't have to be we try to convince everybody overnight, but just start putting it into that level of mainstream media that this is real. This is a group of people, and this is not just some niche, weird cult fad diet thing over here. This is growing daily, and we're starting to get a big enough group of people that you can start hitting mainstream media with it.
Well, I imagine wheat, when it was ground and made into bread, someone was probably mad, what are you doing with that? Our cereal, right?
Right.
Or corn and making polenta and pasta and all these other dishes, and then pizza. So in essence, it sounds like what you're doing is saying, hey, carnivore keto, we can make it in a way that people will look back one day and they'll say, well, yeah, that's pretty normal eating.
Right.
We should all be doing this. And if we see it online, I guess it used to be called TV, but now it's just, it's everywhere, right?
Right.
It's going to be something we'll be comfortable with because it'll be something we've seen before, right? And one of the problems with keto and carnivore, keto's been around a little bit, but it's still kind of like, but carnivore, almost nobody really knows about it.
Right.
We want to make it mainstream.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you as a person should have the right to choose what you're going to eat and how you're going to do it and whatever. And I think that's fine. But if you don't know there's a choice to be made, how can you choose whether to make a good or bad choice? It's a false choice if you don't tell people carnivore exists. If they don't know, how can they decide whether they want to try it or not?
Yeah.
So
what do you think is the cause of your suffering that you had for years?
Yeah, I think there's several things there, but I think the biggest thing that I've noticed is there was really two layers for me. One was the majority of it, I think, was just excess carbohydrate intake was causing just damage inside my body, and my body was just trying to heal, but you pump it full of so much stuff, it can only keep up with so much. And I mean, our bodies are miraculous. They
Amazing.
can do such incredible things if you give them the space to do it. You know, it's like if you give them the oxygen they need to breathe, they can do amazing things. And so I just was fueling it with stuff that was too damaging. And then, of course, then with the processed foods came chemicals and things that made it even worse. There was that. And then for me personally, I don't know if it's oxalates or if it's fiber or if it's a combination of things. There is something about too much plant intake that weighs my body down and causes my brain to be foggy, and I struggle. And I put those two things together, and it just ruined my ability to be me.
Any particular thing that you were eating that you aren't eating anymore that was the biggest thing?
I think sugar being one, but probably the secondary to sugar is, I would say, really dark green stuff. You know, I don't do a lot of plants. I sometimes I flex over into keto, and especially if we're on the road, it's hard sometimes to not have something work its way in. So I flex over into keto from time to time, but mostly I'm carnivore. And when I have flexed over into the keto area, most of the time I do okay as long as I don't have too much and I don't do it multiple days in a row. But if I do dark greens, kale, Brussels sprouts and cabbage for whatever reason, broccoli, anything that comes from that brassica family, like that kind of stuff, or if I do really heavy seed-based spices, like really heavy stuff, if I do that, it throws me for like 3 or 4 days. So,
and how would you define keto versus carnivore for those that don't know anything about this?
Yeah, keto, I generally, strict keto, I try to keep it 20 grams of total carbs or less per day. And you generally fit into that, whatever works for you on your diet. Try to stay away from any of the processed junk and, you know, the real starchy stuff, the grains, all that. Like, just don't even include that, and then just get your total carbs from whatever veggies you choose to, you know, the low carb veggies you choose to include. And it's whole one ingredient foods. Carnivore is taking out as much plant product as you can possibly find, having everything be animal based, and keeping it as close to zero carbs as is humanly possible and reasonable. For me personally, the way that looks is I don't mind a few carbs that creep in from animal products. So like there's trace carbs in an egg yolk. There's some trace carbs in dairy, you know, and that kind of stuff. As long as I don't overdo those things to where I get some kind of an inflammatory issue, I don't necessarily worry if there's a couple of grams of dairy carbs throughout the day, that kind of stuff. Because animal carbs don't do the same thing to me as plant carbs, interestingly. So I try to stick with all animal product. I focus mainly on meat, like whole cuts of meat and ground beef and that kind of thing. Eggs, and then I try to use dairy as a condiment if I'm going to use it. And then when I make a recipe, I usually lean heavier on the dairy for the recipes because that kind of is what gets you to the place where the recipes work. And I see recipes as the special occasion foods where it's like, if this is once every week or once every 2 weeks, and it's just giving you the stability to then the other 7 or 10 or 15 or however many days, you can remain really strict where you're doing meat, salt, eggs, you know, that kind of thing. If that recipe is what keeps you doing that sustainably, then it's a tool to be used. And I try to avoid mostly the seasonings that cause me personally inflammation. I kind of think that for most people, it seems like use what works for you and what you like. If it bothers you, stop using it. You know, use common sense about what you're going to put in your diet that way. And I try to stick to just mainly focusing on fatty meat and make that a majority of what I do. And then the rest is where you experiment to figure out how you feel your best. So,
and what's your go-to, Ash?
My go-to, it kind of changes, but right now, Bacania, man.
Oh,
I'm eating
yeah.
Bacania, but like we had it last night for dinner.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I truthfully, we eat really simply during the week. Like I actually think it's really funny because, Chris, of course, invented carnivore mashed potatoes, and that was his first big viral recipe. And I love that recipe because it's helped so many people. But, I have people walk up to me all the time and they're like, well, you're married to Chris Cooking Nashville. You must eat carnivore mashed potatoes every day of your life. And I'm like, I've had that recipe twice, like in my entire life. And it was just why we were filming or, doing a live stream. But I mean, I would say more like ketovore, where I do really meat heavy keto, and kind of go off the, smaller on the veggies. Butter and bacon are my two favorite things in the universe. He's laughing. I can down some bacon.
Yeah.
I can down some bacon.
I cook it about a pound at a time for her.
I love bacon.
I do too. It's delicious.
The best. It's the best.
And good chapstick. You get that on your lips.
Then we were having a conversation at dinner, Harper's last night, where we had this amazing steaks, and we had steak, lobster, we had oysters, and we had crab. It was just like amazing. A lot of butter and a lot of salt. Where is it? Where do you put fish and turkey and other meats and things?
Mm-hmm.
And what are your few plants that you might eat?
Yeah.
So for me, I enjoy turkey. It's very lean though. I'll eat it, but I don't eat it very often unless like Thanksgiving dinner. I have turkey.
Yeah.
Fish, I actually did not eat any seafood until I met Chris. But now salmon, cod, all of these things are great. For me personally, things like shrimp, I find if I eat too many, I don't feel very good. Just for me personally, it doesn't sit. But I mean, one of my favorite dishes Chris makes is just this really simple salmon that he makes in the oven, and it just like falls apart, and he pours butter all over it, and I'm like, yes. So I really enjoy things like salmon, cod, shrimp, and small things. I'm a big burger patty person. Just simple burger patties, delicious. Like you don't need much on them. Great picanha. That's pretty much, I think, meat-wise, kind of what we do. And then for me, veggie-wise, I actually do really well with like salads, iceberg lettuce, kind of a thing. Occasionally, I'll have a little bit of onion if I get wild.
Okay.
A little bit of onion. Gosh, I'm trying to think. It's interesting. I actually did carnivore for 30 days. We're actually about to start doing BBBE, but before, when I first started keto, I thought I could handle things like broccoli really well. And so I would eat a lot of broccoli. I went carnivore for 30 days, went back to kind of doing this meat heavy keto thing. And I went, broccoli doesn't work for me. So I think it's kind of changed throughout the years, but I would say right now, like a steak and a salad and is pretty much like one of my go-to meals that I know if I eat it, I just feel great. I feel fantastic.
Yeah. I love seafood. I love seafood, and I actually feel better on seafood as like the main staple of a meal than she does. I don't do it a lot because we're kind of landlocked here, so everything gets shipped in. It's not always the greatest quality. I used to live in Key West, and I got really good shrimp and fish when I would go out and catch it myself, or go to the local market and buy what had come in on the shrimp boats that day or whatever. So I love seafood, but I just, for cost and for the fact it's hard to get it fresh sometimes, I don't do a lot of it for us. I do that salmon from time to time. That's really, really nice. And actually that salmon is a really good example of how I use plants when I do flex into that stuff. So I'll put, seasoning wise, I do like salt, pepper. I might put a little bit of an herb on there of some kind. And then I'll take a lemon and I slice it. And I put layers of lemon slices over the salmon, protects it in the oven. And it leaves just a hint of that lemon flavor behind, right? So I use plants for myself, mostly like seasoning in that way. I tend to stick with the aromatic herb types of plants. So like I'll use a little onion or shallot in a recipe. I'll use some garlic. I'll use the dried herbs, fresh herbs, that kind of stuff. So I feel like if the plant product that I put in a recipe leaves a lot of flavor for a small amount of it being in there, that's really cool. That's a nice trade-off for me on the occasion that I choose to use it. What I really avoid for myself is, here is a giant steak, and then on the side I'm going to have a small amount of spinach that's been cooked. Like it just doesn't do it for me. It will mess with my head. And that's the kind of stuff where it's like, okay, that crosses a line where I can feel it in my brain within, sometimes it takes 2 or 3 days, but I've tracked it dozens of times with dozens of experiments over the last 4 to 5 years. I try it a day, 2 days, even 3 days later, I'm struggling, and it happens every time.
Yep.
Hey, if you're eating animal-based, you know how hard it is to find something real when you're on the go. That's why I like the Carnivore Bar. It's made with just meat, fat, salt, and sometimes a little honey. No seed oils, no sugar, no preservatives. It's shelf-stable, travel-ready, and packs 400 calories of real nourishment. Think of it like modern-day pemmican, a survival food, reimagined with high-quality, regeneratively raised beef. Whether you're flying, hiking, road tripping, or just busy between meals, this bar helps you stay fueled until your next steak. It's simple, it's real, and it actually supports how humans are meant to eat. Meet my food.
Can you just give us the one secret that I know everyone's wondering about is how to make the carnivore mashed potatoes?
Yeah, for sure. So it's really a process of chemistry and physics.
Okay.
And so you take your egg whites, right? And you guys can check out my YouTube video where I kind of go in depth into this, but basically it is cooking those egg whites up, getting them all broken down into small pieces in a pan. And use lots of butter, of course, because egg whites don't have any fat. We got to put some fat in there, or it's not going to taste like a mashed potato. And it's cooking and continually stirring and cooking and stirring because you're cooking the sulfur out of those eggs. So when you boil an egg and you open the shell up and you get that real intense egg smell, right? That's the sulfur that exists inside of that egg white. And that sulfur acting with the iron in the egg yolk is why you get that gray ring around an overboiled egg. That sulfur is where that eggy flavor is coming from. And so for people that say, I can't stand the taste of eggs, you got to get that. Yes, that's right. You got to get that sulfur out. And so it takes a while. That's why I don't make this recipe every day. It takes a while, but you cook it kind of a low to medium heat, and you use that butter and you cook and you cook and you cook, and you so overcook those egg whites to where it's like no one would ever eat that, right? But you cook it until all that sulfur smell goes away, because you have basically you have evaporated all of that sulfur gas, and the house will smell like eggs, but the eggs won't anymore. And it starts smelling almost like buttered popcorn is the thing that I would say it smells the most like, because you get that browning butter going on. Yeah. And so that goes into a blender, because you got to get those egg whites turned into something smooth, right? Blender, cream, some fresh mozzarella, and it gives you that fattiness, and there's lots of butter in there, and then season it up how you want as mashed potatoes. You just got to get it nice and smooth. And when I did the recipe originally, I was using egg white powder because I was trying to give it more of that stick to your roof of your mouth mashed potato texture. And my second version of it, my updated 2.0 version, I actually took that out because I realized you don't need it. So I put in some extra beef gelatin, and you can use regular pork gelatin too, but I like the beef personally. You take that beef gelatin and you put it in a dry pan and you toast it the same way you would toast breadcrumbs or something in a pan, right? You toast it until it starts turning sort of a golden yellow color, and it gives you this earthy sort of a thing, which is mostly in your nose. And a lot of people don't realize when you eat food, your nose is a big part of why you taste things. You know, your taste buds take in 50% of what's going on with food, but your nostrils actually, with all of your olfactory senses in there, that's where the other half of your taste is coming from. It's why if you get sick and your nose is plugged, you can't taste things as well. So that smell that comes from a toasted beef gelatin, it's not good on its own. Like, you know, I wouldn't say toast it, smell it, taste it, it's going to be great. No, it has a weird taste. But you put that in that mashed potato mixture and blend it all together, and it gives you that earthy kind of thing going on in your nose that makes you feel like you're eating a potato. And it's really cool. And when you put those things together, you get the sulfur out and you put in that earthy thing and you put it all together. It's really tough for people to say it's not a mashed potato.
There's lots of videos online of people not believing that it's carnivore and it's really potatoes. And I think it's pretty clear Chris is kind of part chef, part mad scientist. And he puts a lot of work, though. I don't think people realize how much work he puts in to create these recipes to truly get it right. Like because his YouTube channel has only been around for 2 years, so we've been very blessed to have a very quick 2-year thing to where the channel has grown so big and it just keeps growing. But you know, one recipe he recently just put out is he did carnivore biscuits, and he worked on that recipe for 2 years.
Wow.
To get it perfectly right.
Yeah.
And they're incredible. They're so good.
Bread, the only reason for bread is butter.
Yeah.
The only reason for potato is butter and sour cream.
Absolutely.
And so ultimately, it's all about a carrying device for fat.
Yep.
And I imagine nature pretty much takes the same ingredients and makes a variety of things.
Right.
So you're manipulating the ingredients
Yes.
and making a variety of things.
Yes, absolutely. And it's really important, I think, because people find that approachable.
Right.
Can you make a French fry?
So I'm working on that. Actually, I have an idea, and in fact, you might even be good feedback on this.
Yeah.
We've talked about me doing a series, taking one recipe, doing a series, and actually showing people week by week experimentation of how I try to come up with something to give them the insight.
I'm in.
Yeah.
I think that's great. To French fry, so I'm a steak guy. It's your bacon, eggs, butter, beef, salt. I do some ice cream, and I do fries from time to time.
Right.
But they always must be a carrying device for the grease from the pan poured all over the fry.
Yep.
And the sour cream dipped in that.
Yep.
Or duck grease or butter mayonnaise.
Yeah.
Which is,
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately
Yeah.
the best.
Oh yeah, you can't get better than duck fat.
It is so good. And so really it's about, tell me about the fats you use in your cooking and how do you please this woman's taste buds?
Yeah.
And in order to coax her, in order to do the dishes.
That's right. That's right. So her favorite on flavor is probably bacon grease. She also, I saw her grab my leg over here when you said duck fat.
When you said duck fat, I was like, I love this man.
Yes,
Man after my own heart. Yes.
I made duck for us this Christmas, and I saved all the rendered fat, and I still have some, and I love cooking with duck fat. So she loves duck fat, she loves bacon grease. So for flavor, those are my first two go-tos, one of the two. And then for finishing things, when you already have flavor, but you want to up the fat and you want it to be not just a totally neutral fat, you want it to enhance flavor, butter. So if I finish a steak, I love melted butter or browned butter to finish the steak, or of course eggs or any of those kinds of things. You want to up that flavor a little bit. And then for frying, anything where you're going high temperature, right? If you try to use butter, it burns.
Yeah.
You can use duck fat, but I feel like duck fat is so liquid gold tasting, it's kind of a waste to just end up dumping a bunch of it out after you cook in it at a high temperature. So I like to save duck fat as a finishing fat. For high temperature cooking, I'll use beef tallow. I can use lard, but I actually find getting a high quality lard is hard anymore unless you can buy it from a butcher and make your own. So I tend to buy beef tallow because I find that to be the most neutral in flavor. It's got a high smoke point. It's fantastic for putting a hard sear on a steak in a cast iron skillet, or when I do so I did recently carnivore hush puppies, carnivore fritters, some fried things. I did a carnivore beer batter style.
We're getting close to the French fry, aren't we?
Yeah, that's right. We're getting close. We're getting real close.
He's really working on it. I saw him working on it the other day. I'm like, keep going.
I am. And so I have, these different fried recipes now. Beef tallow is so great for those because it leaves a very neutral flavor as long as you get a good quality one, and it handles the smoke point really, really well. And you can filter it after you're done using it, and you can save it, and you can reuse it for frying. And it's really cool. It's actually, so there's an Asian approach to oil, which I'm starting to play around with now, where they take, and of course they use unhealthy seed oils, but I'm going to play around with animal fats where they fry different things to impart flavor in the oil, and then they use that as a finishing oil in soup, like a ramen noodle, or they'll put it over a meat or something. So I'm going to take beef tallow and I'm going to start playing around with it. Can you fry things with that beef tallow, filter it out, and then use that as like a seasoned oil, like an Asian recipe would call for, and put spoons of it again as a finishing oil, because that could open up a whole new world of how to play with your flavor while getting those healthy fats. Yeah. So those are really fun. The other one that I think a lot of people don't consider is you can actually fry things, whether it's deep fried or just frying in a skillet, whatever, at a higher temperature. You can use ghee, clarified butter, and that is really nice because it's a very neutral flavor, but it has an almost slightly buttery hint to it. So if you do impart any flavor by frying, it's like butter. So that's a really, really good one. So.
I always save the duck grease or the lard, the tallow, and it's amazing. So you fry whatever you're frying, and then what's left over, you pour it back in the jar, and you notice almost none of it's gone.
Yeah.
So it's not absorbed by the food, actually.
Nope.
It's just cooking, frying at a higher temperature.
Yep.
Boiling in water has the lowest temperature, but oils have a much higher temperature.
Yep. Absolutely. I also find because it's a high temperature, higher than water, and it's also a liquidy texture, because you get such a good coating of that around whatever you're cooking, you get a very even rendering of whatever the fat is, and so you get the Maillard reaction, right, where you're caramelizing the various compounds inside of meat, and that's why it turns brown. And that's that's when the chefs say brown coloring on meat is flavor. That's what they're talking about, is that Maillard reaction. That's where flavor comes from.
The sugars
on the
meat are getting the Maillard reaction, which is really great.
And so you get that really nice flavor, but you get such an even browning because of the oil that can surround everything, or in this case the melted animal fats surrounding everything, and it's such a fun technique.
Could we all be healthier by simply adding real animal fat? I always call it, there's plant oils and there's animal fats. There's no such thing as healthy fats, because the universe doesn't determine things.
Right.
But really, it's animal fat is the healthiest thing. But by simply utilizing, adding fat to our diet, because ultimately our last 50, 100 years has been low fat.
Right.
Even though we claim seed oils, but I don't think we consume many seed oils. I think they're cooked with, I guess if you said salad dressings, huge part of salad dressings. But do you think that's all we might need to do to make us healthier?
I think it would be a really great first step, because what we ultimately need to do as a human race to all of us be healthier, I think we're learning all the time. We're always investigating. We think we know so much, and then something comes out and we're like, oh, we've been wrong for 200 years. Like, we're always on a journey of learning. But I think we've seen so much evidence at this point that animal fats are so good for us in so many ways. And even if the only thing, for people who aren't even doing keto or carnivore, if the only thing they did was take out sort of unnatural plant oils that have been way, way condensed down compared to what they are naturally, instead of that, if we took that out and instead we added back beef tallow, bacon grease, lard, real animal fats, which is what humans have been eating for thousands of years at this point and cooking with, if the only thing people did was that, I think we would see a massive shift in the health of the world. Just that would be a big thing. And there may be a lot of other stuff we would still need to do, but that'd be a great first step.
Which is essentially keto and paleo. It's like add real animal fats.
Yes. Yes. I also think it becomes so satiating when you eat something that has those animal fats on it. You don't feel like you need to keep eating and eating and eating and eating and eating.
When you think about butter and cream, breast milk.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, that was our initial diet.
Yep.
And then we threw out breast milk, and we put bottled, manufactured soy milk.
Yeah.
And we're telling people that fat is bad.
Yeah.
Our body wants fat.
Yeah.
You eat it, and or it makes it. And fat is the fittest thing. I always say no man wants a skinny woman. This is the truth, though.
Yeah.
Because reproduction is built on fat.
Right.
But we have maligned fat as the cause of disease. But in fact, it's a plant-based, low animal fat diet that's deadly for us. And obesity causes no disease. Simple and easy. Obviously, we've been pushing. We for whatever reason, our environment says we'll be skinny, but that could be dangerous if there's a famine.
Yeah.
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 Fat changed my life because again, growing up in California, it was like, Bakersfield produces a lot of almonds that we eat here in the U.S. So I was told, you eat all these almonds, you eat vegetables, it's healthy or whatever, low fat. And then when we went keto, I was like, can I have all this fat? Is it good for me? And you're talking about, like if we could just get people in the world just eating the animal fats. I know for me what it did to my brains, how it helped my, hormones as a lady just like stable out. And I'm like, it would change the world, you guys, if we were eating more animal fats, if that was it. But Chris is looking at me and smile because he knows I love the fat. I'm a big fan of the fat. And I try to tell that, to other ladies too. I'm like, guys, the fat, the butter, the bacon grease, like it changed everything. That was a big game changer for me.
It suppresses inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
It increases your satiety, makes you feel, oh man, I don't need to eat any more food.
Mm-hmm.
I think the eating of fat, traditionally for thousands of years, we hunted and we ate the fatty animals, and you were done until the next kill, and the next hunt, the next kill, you're done. But grazing, so in the fall, the late summer fall, when the ripe fruits and vegetables and whatever stage they were at, we would just eat and eat and eat in order to get fat to survive the winter, hibernation, gestation, migration, and all those other things. Now, Ash Wednesday.
Yes.
Can we talk about your sharing and communicating and really? It's not just entertainment, it's building knowledge. Tell me about your passion to talk and share and give us more information and knowledge.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Growing up, we were talking about, I'm from Bakersfield, California. And so if you know anything about Bakersfield, you got the home of Buck Owens and Merle Haggard. And so growing up, I love country music because it always told stories. And other than stories, what country music is really great at? Connecting with people, right? I remember, so my Nana was actually the person that got me into country music, and she would, every day she would be cleaning her house or cooking dinner, and she had this cassette tape, and I have it, it's at my home just down the road, but she would like play these songs by like Tammy Wynette and Loretta Lynn, and like heartbreak, sad songs. When my Nana passed and I would listen to those songs, I understood heartbreak, so it's telling a story, but it's also relating an emotion, and it's connecting to people. And I think that's a really powerful thing. So, when I was growing up in Bakersfield, I think I was just surrounded by the ability to connect with people, the ability to tell a story. How do you do that? I became obsessed with it. And so, then when I moved out here to Nashville, I basically sold everything I owned. I had never even seen Nashville before, never been to the state of Tennessee. But I actually picked up, I just sold everything. And I literally jumped on a plane and I moved out here. And I actually slept in my car the first 6 months when I came out here to Nashville. So where we're filming at today, there's actually a place just around the corner where I actually used to park my car and sleep at night. Yeah. So I wanted to write songs so bad that that's what I was willing to do. And I think I just love to connect with people. And so, clearly it's like that's kind of what I do as an artist. And I think that's why Chris asked me to come and be involved in what he's doing with his YouTube channel and with Chris Cooking Nashville, because I just want to help people and I just want to connect with people. And, like today, I loved getting to meet you and everyone here is just so wonderful. But, it's like, I feel like that's kind of my calling, is like, be an artist, be a storyteller. But how can I connect with people? How can I not only go share my music and what I'm doing, but how can I then partner with my husband and support him in what he's doing, but then be able to go out to the streets of Bakersfield or go out to a bar or go to these places and tell people about keto and carnivore and how it changed their life. And I think what we've kind of noticed, which I was not expecting, but I'm very humbled by it, I have a lot of women come up to me and will share things about their past and different trauma and abuse and, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, man, I relate to them. And they tell me things that they're like, I've never told anyone this, and I don't know why, but I feel like I can tell you. And it's like, I bawl like a baby, but it's like, that's changing someone's life. And then to love on them and just be able to help them and encourage them, like, hey, let's get your diet in order. Let me make some suggestions to help you with all these different things. It's a calling I was not expecting, but one that I'm really, really grateful for. So
besides the storytelling, obviously, is the critical part, because that's our
Absolutely.
humanity, where we all came from.
Yeah.
And science has somehow tried to usurp its ability to make us healthier.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's done a very good job.
No.
And maybe you could talk a little bit about spirituality and faith and how important that is in your lives, and how it could maybe help all of us.
Yeah. Thank you, by the way, for asking that. I really appreciate that, because I think that healing is full body. It's the mind, it's the heart, the soul. It's all of it. That's been my experience, and I know Chris's as well. But just we've talked about this on Chris's channel, and I'm really bold about this, and I talk about this because I'm here to help people.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm sitting in this chair right now. Is like, who can we get to try keto? Who can we get to try carnivore? Like, let's go. I'm here to support. But I actually had a really crazy childhood. So I grew up in a very abusive home. My father actually abandoned us when I was 18 years old. He walked out the door. He took out the money, all this stuff. And then through a series of events, it's a very long story, so I'll try to keep it short. But my dad ended up actually being arrested. So my father's a criminal. He's in and out of prison. When he left, I actually became homeless for the first time. And I ended up getting custody of my two younger brothers. So when I was 18 years old, while other kids are out kind of partying and doing their thing, I was raising kids. And I love my brothers, very, very much, and I wouldn't change anything that's happened. But I think that kind of led to me starting this unhealthy thing in my life, because clearly it's like, well, you have this really abusive childhood, and now, you're homeless, and you got two kids, and how do you do it? And honestly, this is one of the reasons why Chris was talking about I hate eggs. I have vivid memories of my father doing things where eggs were involved. So this is, and I've had women come up on the channel, men as well, and talk about, like, when I talk about, I have this memory, and so then therefore I don't want to eat eggs or, liver. It's like, it's kind of like a trauma PTSD thing. And so we talk about that on Chris's channel, because it's like, I would like to normalize that, because I want people to get help, and I want to help people overcome that, just like I did. So, that's kind of like my story, though, is being homeless and raising my brothers. And then once I got them graduated and on their own, that's when I packed up and moved to Nashville. Like I was telling you, that's why I wasn't afraid to go live in my car. It's like, well, heck, I've done that once before. I'll do it again. Like, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to be. And so I think for me, the thing, though, that changed, and people are like, well, you seem I get this a lot. People are like, well, you seem really put together. You seem really successful. And I'm like, I appreciate that, but I'm human. I still have things I'm working on. I have all these things, but they're like, well, what, if you could give advice or insight on, like, how you do all that you do, what would it be? And the number one answer is a relationship with Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. So I accepted Christ as my Savior 6 months before my dad left. Mm-hmm. Changed my life. I mean, Jesus is just like the answer. He's my peace. He's the ultimate healer. And so I think eating a proper human diet, whether that's keto, carnivore, ketovore, wherever you're at, on the spectrum at the moment. But it's like, if I could give one piece of advice, have a relationship with Christ. So that's plain it. I mean, he's the ultimate healer. And I'm not going to cry on this podcast, but
you got me crying.
But you know what? We're showing emotion, and that's okay. Yeah. But that's why, I think, oh, darn it. but no, we got to get tissues. But no, I mean, like, this is why I think that Chris and I are so passionate. And this is why we go out to, I mean, I'm a musician, okay? Like, let's be honest. I play in bars, okay? Most of the other musicians around me are on some form of an illegal substance. I don't judge them. I don't criticize them. You know what I do? We love them where they're at. Yeah. And not only do we tell them to eat steak and, get into watch Chris's channel, learn the recipes. Maybe we tell them about our friend Dr. Kiltz. We share the knowledge of keto and carnivore. The first thing we do, though, is share about Jesus.
That's it.
And not in a way that would ever, put someone off. And if you don't believe the way that we do, we still love you. That's totally okay. But if you're asking me, like, well, what's the number one thing to change your life to get healthy? It's having a relationship with Jesus Christ. Hands down.
Yeah. It's also the reason that you know, when we talk to people on the channel in the live chat, or when we, you know, do these, you know, these recipes, we're trying to help people or any of this kind of stuff. It's, you know, I've had people ask, like, why are you so passionate about not just like you're trying to create recipes, but why are you so passionate about being so insistent that they're so close to the real thing or as best as they can be? And why do you care so much about this idea of food and culture and all this kind of stuff? And it's like, because there's real people behind all of this, and there's real things. Like, you know, when someone says, well, liver is good for you, eggs are good for you, you just gotta, you know, stomach it, just eat it, just deal with it. And I go, cool. So what do I tell my wife when she has trauma issues come up in her memory about that stuff? How about, instead of me saying, well, you just need to get over it and do it, what if I figure out a way to cook it that suddenly it doesn't bring up a traumatic memory anymore, and now she can do things that are good for her health? And so it's keeping the human element in saving people.
Emotions are part of our nature.
Yeah.
They are. Yeah. And I think that's why, you know, again, like, if someone is able to do meat, salt, and water, I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I encourage that. I also know that there's a lot of people out there that have come up to Chris and I where they have history of abuse and trauma, and emotional eating is a very real thing. You add that on top of all the addictive processed foods that are out there in the market. Man, no wonder people are struggling, you know? And it's like, we just need to be able to go out there, love them where they're at, and show them the way. And you know, we try to lead by example. I think that's another huge thing that I'm very proud of my husband for doing a lot. You know, he works really hard to literally create recipes that are as clean as possible. He works and we're still working, you know, like, we haven't hit our goal yet, but we've also only been doing this for a few years. But it's like, we're always trying to improve. We're always trying to get better. And we want everyone in our community and the people we meet to understand the knowledge that will change their life, and then to encourage them to just be better. Every day you wake up, you be better. It's just.
What inspired you into the music industry?
I think, honestly, it kind of goes back to having an abusive childhood, and music was an escape. And music, especially country music, was relatable. Right? It's like, I know heartache. I can tell you about hard times. I listen to all kinds of music. It's not that I'm trying to pick out one genre, but let's put it this way. I would never go pop. And it's nothing against pop music. It's cool. But, you know, to someone like me, when you're homeless and raising 2 kids at 18 years old, a pop song about bubblegum is not going to really affect you.
She's never going to go pop.
Never
Shall I
going
write
to go
this
pop.
down?
Yep.
Write it down, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can bank that one.
Yeah,
Don't you? So I believe that all of our damage to our brains and our lives is secondary to our deadly diet.
Yes.
And if we can go back to a true human diet, which would be nearly carnivore, we might throw in little plants here and there, small amounts. And then we'd be back to our tradition of our small families, our villages, and our stories.
Yes.
And I think that between and alcohol certainly, and because of the availability of drugs and alcohol, and it's sort of like, oh, it's okay, and the damage from the diet we've been eating, it sort of contributes to our parents, and all the trauma that they've passed down, which we will pass down under most circumstances,
Right.
because we're all damaged by.
And that right there, where you're talking about like things going down through the generations. So when my dad left, I actually helped turn him into the authorities. That was me putting my foot down, saying, I'm not going to do this. And me raising my brothers. Now, my brothers maybe hate me at times for it, but I was hard on him in the way of like, you're going to pray, you're going to serve the Lord, you're going to do well in school, and you're not going to let this affect you. Like, you're not going to be a victim. So I think, though, by, you know, stopping abuse in your family, by, for me, when I went keto, I actually quit alcohol. Now, if you would have said to me, you know, you're an alcoholic, I would have told you, no, I'm not. What are you talking about? I maybe have like a drink a day, maybe 2. It wasn't like I was getting drunk on a regular basis. But when I went keto for the first time, Chris was like, well, you know, a lot of carbs and alcohol, you're going to have to knock that off. And I was like, I'll do it for 30 days and then I'll go right back to it. man, 2 weeks in, mental clarity like never before. And so I'm like, you know what? I don't want to pass down with my family and their history of alcoholism. I don't want to pass that down, through the generation. So I stopped drinking. I've been sober for 3 years. Best thing I ever did. But you're right. And now with this understanding that we have of a proper human diet, keto carnivore, it's like, well, now we're trying to clean this up to hopefully not pass on so much to the next generation. And I don't know if Chris and I will ever have kids or not, but if we ever do, I want to do it right. I want to try to set them up in a way that they will be successful and understand the importance of it.
Yeah.
Well, flatter him and feed him
That's
and
right.
make love to him. And
Pretty
ultimately,
simple.
This is a very simple thing.
Yeah.
So, all right, Chris, Cooking Nashville, and Ash Taylor, Bad Ash. It's really been a pleasure. Just would you mention your channels where people can find you?
Absolutely. You guys can find me at anywhere, Chris Cooking Nashville. You can go to chriscookingnashville.com, and I'm Chris Cooking Nashville on all the social medias, including on YouTube. And we would love to have you guys jump in on any of our comment sections, say hello, just tell us you're there so we can love on you.
You can find me at ashtaylor.com. There's all my music is on Spotify and Apple Music, wherever you like to stream. I do on my YouTube channel, actually, every Wednesday night at 7, we do Ash Wednesdays. So we play some music and hang out. And and you also find me on Chris's channel. I'm the one that eats the food at the end. That's my job.
We're all going to be there. And really, this is a family affair. We're all realizing that the community now is connecting through anyone could be out there and being creative.
Yes.
And whether it's keto, carnivore, music, faith, whatever it is, get out there and do it. So thank you all for being with us once again on Kiltz's Keto and Carnivore Conversations. Again, God bless everyone. Thanks.